Hi everyone, this is Blue Canker, and I'm back today with a first impressions review of The Surge. I'm going to talk about the gameplay, graphics, sound, go through some of the good points, the bad points, and give you my overall first impression, so sit back and enjoy. The basic premise of The Surge is that the Earth's nearing the end of its lifespan, so it's been ravaged by warfare, overpopulation, lack of resources, etc. And you start off as an employee of a company called Creo, who are working to try and reverse the effects of that. So you play as Warren, who's the main character of The Surge, so there's no character customization or selection, you start off as him. I was quite surprised initially that you start off actually in a wheelchair. Normally don't see anything like that in computer games, any sort of representation of disabilities, it's pretty rare you see anything like that, so it was quite a change. I was surprised to see where we'd actually go from that. It was a little bit of a curveball at the beginning where it teaches you the basics, so just moving around, using the camera and so on. So it was quite a refreshing change to see that.
And save tomorrow today.
So after navigating the beginning section, you then choose an exosuit, which is the rig, the combat power armor, whatever you want to call it. So you've got a choice of a Rhino or the Lynx. The Lynx is fast and agile, the Rhino is slow but does more damage, it's more stable. You choose your suit, and that's when the game kicks off and things go wrong. So The Surge is essentially a third-person action RPG. It's similar to games such as Dark Souls, Lords of the Fallen. This game was actually developed by Deck 13, who made Lords of the Fallen a few years ago. The combat, as in those games, can be quite challenging, so you've got enemies which can be quite brutal in the way they attack you. So if you rush into combat unprepared or going in swinging wildly, usually you're going to come off a lot worse. The game changes things compared to other games like this, so in that the attacks are different. You no longer have strong and light attacks, but you've got horizontal and vertical attacks. That gives you some more options when you're in combat to choose the direction of your blows, and it means you can open the attacks up and exploit the enemy weaknesses. So I do like that, it makes it a lot more versatile. And generally on the whole, the combat feels a lot more fluid compared to games like Dark Souls and Lords of the Fallen, where sometimes it can feel a little bit clunky. Now it does change if you're using a heavier rig or an exosuit in this case. So as you acquire new bits of armor, you can change, and it will have a knock-on effect with how you play and move and so on. But all in all, I like the idea of changing the direction of the attacks, and it's a nice change, and it adds something new to the genre. As with games such as Dark Souls, Lords of the Fallen, you can actually dodge and block. So blocking is kind of self-explanatory. You can block. It slowly drains your stamina if you block attacks. But if you do it at the right time in this game, you can actually stagger and parry the opponent, do a counter attack. Dodging, dashing out of the way, but you can actually jump upwards slightly. So if an enemy aims, say, towards your legs, for example, you can jump up out of the way, and that allows you to, do a counter attack more quickly. One thing that does stand out in this game is the targeting system. So you can target the whole body. That's as you'd expect. It means your combat's more precise, but you can actually also target specific body parts. So the reason for this is twofold. One, if you target a body part that's unarmoured, which will show up sort of blue, that means you'll do more damage, you'll kill the enemy more quickly. If you target an armoured body part, which will show up sort of yellow, it means you have a chance of cutting away that body part and reclaiming the equipment on that body part. So if you aim for one of the legs or the head or body arm, you have a chance of cutting away that equipment, and that means if you get that equipment, you can then equip it yourself. If you do cut away the equipment and it's not whole, you'll get a scrap version of it, which you can then, once you've harvested enough of that type, you can then craft it at a later point in the game once you go to sort of the hub area, the checkpoints. But it also works the same with weapons as well. You can cut away an enemy's weapon. If you don't get the whole piece, you can get scrap items, and that you can use that again to upgrade and develop new weaponry. So with the Surge, there's quite a lot of weapons to choose from. So you've got weapons that are classed as single rig, sort of one-handed, twin rigs, sort of dual wielding weapons. Then you've got things in between like staff weapons, overcutting blades. With the Surge, the more you use a certain type of weapon and which falls in a set category, the proficiency will actually build up. So it just basically means the more enemies you kill with it, the better you get with it, and that does more damage. It's quite cool. This, it means you can have a favoured weapon, and if you keep using that, you can get stronger. But also, I feel it gives you an incentive to try and use other weapons and master them because you get rewarded for building up proficiency and more damage. So it makes combat a little bit more easier once you start doing more damage with the weapons. And that's on top of actually upgrading them and unlocking new weapons as well. So you can upgrade the weapons, which builds the damage. But then also when you unlock new weapons, some do more damage than others. The game has a mechanic where you build up energy, so there's basically a little blue bar at the bottom top left corner. The energy is basically used to execute finishes, and when you unlock the drone, you use the drone to attack. So when you build up enough energy and it gets to sort of above halfway point, a little symbol will show up and you'll be able to prompt a finishing move. So that basically allows you to cut the body part and finish the enemy, kill the enemy quite easily. The green bar is basically stamina, so if it runs out you can't attack, and the red bar is your health disappears, you die basically. The game has what's called exo suits, so you've got a basic couple of suits to start off with, the Lynx and the Rhino. One's fast and agile, one's slow but more stable and lessens damage. But you unlock new pieces as you go through the game, so, either by from killing dead enemies, all those rewards, or from finding things. The game has what's called injectables and implants. So injectables are basically, think of them as potions that recover your health. Some can give you an instant amount of health, some will recover health over a certain amount of time, and you can increase the amount of injectables you've got. The implants do things which enhance combat in some way, so it might be that it boosts your overall health, or allows you to see the enemy, health bars, or increase the amount of damage you do. And the implants was what's called hardwired, and hot, and ones that you can call hotkeying. So the ones you can switch any time on the fly in and out of combat, and there's some where you can only change them when you go to these checkpoint areas, and you have to wire those into your suit. Now, the way the game works in terms of the leveling up system, you gain something called tech scrap. What tech scrap is basically your equivalent of souls. It's your currency for building upgrades, building new weapons, and for leveling up. When you're leveling up, it's called your core strength. So the higher your core level, the stronger your character becomes. But it allows you to equip better armor and better implants. As each time you equip a piece of armor or an implant, it uses a certain amount of power. So to equip the better implants and armor, you're going to need a higher core level. So as you explore the Creo facility and go through the different areas, you'll come across what are called operation centres. So these basically act as checkpoints. So if you go in the operation centre, you can do a few things. So one is communicate with NPCs you might have rescued, get side missions. You can also restore your health items, so the injectables. It will respawn the enemies as well. But you can also bank your tech scrap. So your tech scrap, as I mentioned, the experience, the currency. So if you bank your tech scrap, it means you're not going to lose it if you die. And you don't have to, and it doesn't disappear. It just means it's saved as you go back to the operation centre and use it again to either level up or craft new gear. If you do die whilst you've got quite a decent amount of tech scrap in the level, once you respawn, you've got a few minutes to go and try and get the tech scrap. If you die again on the way there, it's lost forever. Or if you don't get there in time, it's gone. With the levels as well, there are areas which are hidden, or the shortcuts which will open up later as you explore different parts of the level. So there might be doors that are inaccessible or offline. But once you go through the levels and explore, you better open up shortcuts. And that means that you're not having a massive slogs around, big levels where, if you die, you're having to go way back. It's going to be a bit of a pain in the arse. It does mean that you can access either hidden lifts, break through walls, or even doors suddenly will open up which weren't online before. And it just means that OA levels all network and sort of snake together quite well. So to talk about the graphics, so first thing that stands out for me is it's quite bold and colourful. So just looking at the section now where I'm fighting this character, you can see that the outside area is quite bright. If shadows from the things like the crates nearby. But what I like about it as well is even when you go in parts where it's on the ground and dark, there's a lot of dynamic lighting, the shadows, and it feels quite claustrophobic. But I like the fact that for me, because it's a futuristic setting, the developers been allowed to use a lot more colour and boldness in the just in the texture and in the appearance of the enemies that you fight. Whereas in some games, like in sort of a more gothic setting ones or medieval ones, sometimes the colour's a bit more muddy. With this as well, I like the fact that you got the sort of the effects as well. So like looking at the lighting effects of weapons, you know, the electrical discharge. When you're attacking arm, you got sparks. When there's, you know, you're cutting away body parts, you got the blood, you know, showering down. You got the fire when you destroy an enemy, and it's, you know, it's about to explode. All that, you know, stands out. It's very bold, you know, look quite convincing. But also little things like when you're fighting enemies, you've got the numbers indicating, you know, the damage indicators. They stand out quite nicely. The text it's too small or too big. It's just right in my opinion. The only thing is a little bit of a down is if you were to pause and, you know, zoom into say one of the enemy's faces, you know, they don't look that great, you know, up close. But overall, in terms of the actual design of the, you know, the full bodies of the enemies you fight and the actual environments, you know, the whole factory setting, you know, it's quite impressive in my opinion. And I like the change of it being a factory. You know, I've not played many games like of this nature, which is sort of set in an industrial sort of setting, you know, sort of futuristic factory setting, other than sort of Dead Space games. So you know, it does stand out in that respect for me. So let's talk about the sound effects first of all. So the sound effects, you know, quite nice in my opinion. Got the metal on metal, you know, sound when you're clashing against armor and, you know, blocking enemy blows, but also the sound of, you know, limbs being severed. You know, it's quite convincing. Sometimes, you know, it sounds a bit like hacking sort of fruit as such, but you know, overall, you know, it's close as sound of, you know, of hacking flesh that, you know, I've really heard. But you also, when you've got environmental things like little explosions, all that's quite convincing. You know, the floods of enemies that jump out of the way. You know, it does sound, you know, quite realistic in my opinion. So just have a listen to this. So I'm just going to talk about the actual, you know, music in the game. So the game doesn't bombard you with music constantly. So there's times where there's no music at all when you know, as you're exploring the levels. But when it does come in, it's quite sort of atmospheric and adds to the tension. So you might go into an area and, you know, the music will slowly creep up and it adds to the foreboding, especially sort of where it's dark, you can't really see what's going on. It builds on the tension quite well. If you fight like a boss, you'll get musical building there, as you know, kind of expected in games of this nature, just so it adds a bit more memorability to the effect. But what I like is that it doesn't overuse the music. Some games will have it constantly, so it doesn't stand out as much. You might have a good soundtrack and odd metal track, but it doesn't add to the overall feel and tension. I feel in the Surge it does it well, so just have a little bit of, you know, music, just you kind of see what I'm on about really. And lastly, the actual, you know, voice recording is done quite well in the game, you know, for the sort of vocal effects. So you've got the normal effects you got in combat, where, you know, screams of pain for the enemies, but also the actual voice acting in terms of audio logs. You found it's quite clear and crisp, you know, decent enough range of dialects, and also when you're communicating, you know, with sort of NPCs in the game. So again, I'll just play a little example of that.
Your rig has been damaged. Its distress beacon has been triggered. You need to get back into the factory.
The rig seems to work for me. Honestly, it's the least of my problems. I mean, I can walk. Huh. Never thought I'd be able to say that again.
And there's a quick example of one of the audio logs.
Again. This time about the exoskeleton program. He's refused to have the implant surgery. And we've explained it's hardly invasive, even offered to double his bonus. But no, thinks management will use it to control the workforce. And he even brought up his union nonsense again. If he poisons the others, it could put us months behind schedule. It's amazing. He doesn't see it as making his job easier. I recommend termination. You know, we put up with too much of his trash talking.
So I'm going to talk about the good points now, just to, you know, lay them down. So the logical layout to the areas. So when you find the shortcuts, hidden elevators, doors, it all comes together quite nicely. There's no map in the game, so it makes you want to actually explore. And you know, again, there's no option for the map, so you have to look at where you're going. But it does make the shortcuts, when you find them, feel all more rewarding, and, you know, adds more hope to the actual campaign as you're playing through it. The game's got the elements of games such as obviously Lords of the Fallen, Dark Souls, but it's got more sort of fresh feel and aesthetic of games like that. Dead Space as well. The sci-fi setting, nice and refreshing. It adds a new edge to it. Story isn't hidden like in games such as Dark Souls either. So through the audio logs and NPCs, you'll find the story comes together and it's not hidden and mystified. You're not having to read item descriptions to actually know what's going on. Got fully voiced characters. The combat's fluid and easy to get to grips with as well, so it doesn't feel clunky. Finishes are easy to execute. The combat will slow down with heavier weapons and rigs, which you'd expect. But overall, the actual chaining of combat and the blows and combos together, it just feel a lot more natural and fluid in the way it comes together. I like the idea of the weapon proficiency, so the more you use weapons, the more you'll get to do more damage, because it rewards you for using your favourite weapon, but also for me as well, it made me want to use new types of weapons I wasn't familiar with, just so I could build that familiarity. And it gives you a reward in terms of if you were using weapons that you found a little bit more difficult to use, you were gaining something for it. Also the idea of hacking off body parts to reclaim either scrapped armour and weapons or potentially whole pieces, and schematics so you can build your own weapons and armour. I do quite like that. And the old sort of customising building your sort of rig and suit using different parts, to enhance the combat, the creation of new weapons and armour pieces, and the upgrade system. I do quite like that. It adds a new dynamic to it, rather than just going to the usual vendors that you get in RPGs, buying new equipment. I like in this game it rewards you for attacking the body parts and reclaiming new bits of armour, and then allowing you to build those items yourself. Finally, I'm going to talk about the bad points in the game. Now, the bad points, there's not too many for me. The only things I could really say so far is it can be a little bit repetitive. The environment is a nice change in terms of sort of the industrial factory setting, but sometimes it feels like you are walking on sort of the same corridors over and over again. It's not an issue for me as such, but I'm putting it in there because it might be for people who expect it in RPGs. But there's no character creation. You play as Warren; he's the main protagonist. If people want in the character creation that you get in games like Bloodborne, Dark Souls, you're not going to have this. You may have come away feeling a little bit disappointed with that. The game has no multiplayer either. Again, for me, I'm not bothered at all. I like the single player campaign, but if people are wanting sort of the invasion elements that you'd get, the cooperative gameplay, there's none of that. It's just a single player campaign. One thing as well is that if for people who rush into the game or aren't willing to be patient, study the enemy attack patterns, get used to different weapons, probably will find the combat quite frustrating. There are times where you're getting beaten over and over again by enemies. It can be a bit disheartening. With this game, it's one of those where you take a breather, come back to it, an hour or so later. You'll find you probably do the area quite easily. But for people want a sort of hack and slash game, this isn't one of them. You're probably going to get your arse handed to you over and over again if you do that. So if you're one of those sort of players, I would avoid that game, for that reason alone. So overall, The Surge, really good game in my opinion. It's a mixture of Dark Souls meets Dead Space. It's a cool sci-fi setting, bright, bold and colourful. Combat's very fluid and quite rewarding. I'd say if I'm going to give it a score out of 10, give it an 8. I'd recommend buying this game, and for people fan of action RPGs, you'll definitely enjoy it. Go out there, buy it, and enjoy the gameplay. And that's it for this episode of First Impressions. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please share and like it. But thanks for watching, and I'll catch you guys later.